Island Council member on Stacia says the information being provided in connection with the vaccine remains vague. Prime Minister of St. Martin says government will continue to monitor the situation on Carnival 2021. And Joseph Robinette Biden Jr. is the United States' 46th president. Those are the headlines for Wednesday, January the 20th, 2021. Good evening, viewers. This is SXM Daily News, and I'm Valerie Clinton. Thanking you so much for joining me this evening. And as usual, we have a full newscast for you, so let's get started. In our first story, in news out of Washington, D.C., Joseph Robinette Biden Jr. became the 46th President of the United States today, Wednesday, January the 20th, 2021. Swearing the oath of office just before noon to take the helm of a deeply divided nation while inheriting a confluence of crises arguably greater than any faced by his predecessors. His vice president, 56-year-old Kamala Devi Harris, also made history today when she was sworn in as Joe Biden's vice president, becoming the first woman, the first Black American, and the first Asian American to hold the second highest U.S. office. Biden's inauguration came at a time of national tumult and uncertainty, a ceremony of resilience as the hallowed American democratic right unfurled by a U.S. Capitol battered by an insurrectionist siege just 2 weeks ago. On a chilly Washington day, dotted with snow flurries, a bipartisan trio of ex-presidents, along with the elite of nation's government, gathered, ensuring the quadrennial ceremony persevered, even though it was encircled by security forces, evocative of a war zone and devoid of crowds because of the coronavirus pandemic. The president, in his first speech, said that it is America's day. It's democracy's day, a day of history and hope, of renewal and resolve.
This is America's day. This is democracy's day, a day of history and hope, of renewal and resolve. Through a crucible for the ages, America has been tested anew, and America has risen to the challenge. Today, we celebrate the triumph not of a candidate, but of a cause, the cause of democracy. The people, the will of the people has been heard, and the will of the people has been heeded. We've learned again that democracy is precious, democracy is fragile, and at this hour, my friends, democracy has prevailed. So now, on this hallowed ground where just a few days ago violence sought to shake the Capitol's very foundation, we come together as one nation, under God, indivisible, to carry out the peaceful transfer of power as we have for more than 2 centuries. As we look ahead in our uniquely American way, restless, bold, optimistic, and set our sights on the nation we know we can be and we must be. I thank my predecessors of both parties for their presence here today. I thank them from the bottom of my heart. And I know the resilience of our Constitution and the strength of our nation, as does President Carter, who I spoke with last night, who cannot be with us today, but whom we salute for his lifetime in service. I've just taken the sacred oath each of those patriots have taken, the oath first sworn by George Washington. But the American story depends not on any one of us, not on some of us, but on all of us, on we the people who seek a more perfect union. This is a great nation. We are good people. And over the centuries, through storm and strife, in peace and in war, we've come so far. But we still have far to go.
And as we continue now with news back on St. Martin, Prime Minister of St. Martin, the Honorable Sylvania Jacobs, congratulated the new President and Vice President of the United States at this morning's Council of Ministers weekly press briefing. The Prime Minister said that she could not let the moment pass. As being a woman herself, she wanted to congratulate Kamala Harris for being the first woman of color to hold the office, and she wishes them both much strength.
Today is the inauguration of the President of the United States and Vice President of the United States of America, Mr. Joe Biden and Mrs. Kamala Harris. And I could not allow the moment to pass without, as a female leader myself, issuing the congratulations of the people of St. Martin via this medium to the incoming President and Vice President of the U.S. They are taking the helm at a very, very difficult time. And this government completely understands the pressures that they will be under, so we wish them much strength. But also as a female leader, I must congratulate Kamala Harris as being the first woman of color, mixed heritage, Indian and Black to represent, and the first woman, period, to hold this office. And I think as such, it's an inspiration for women all over the world, and especially young girls who may have been downtrodden or thinking that they could not. This is a great opportunity to realize that indeed we can, and we can do so with class as well as with strength. So I wish them much strength, and to the people of St. Martin, again, let us keep safe.
Meanwhile, Minister of Finance, the Honorable Ardwell Edion, speaking at the Council of Ministers weekly press briefing earlier today, announced that the Chamber of Commerce will be holding virtual sessions on business capacity building. The minister also touched on the payroll support registration, which has been extended, and the road tax deadline.
The Chamber of Commerce will be holding virtual sessions geared towards business capacity building. These events will be taking place throughout February via Zoom. Each session has a guest speaker from a different organization, like the tax department, notary, and SSV. The webinars are free. You just need to sign up via their Facebook page. The first session will be on February 2nd, and the last one will be on February 18th. Of course, I would like to make sure that at least you attend the tax department session. The deadline for the business payroll support registration has been extended to January 22nd. That is this upcoming Friday, and I suggest you register today. In regards to road tax, the deadline to pay your 2021 road tax is February 28th. I encourage you all to use the online payment system and avoid the long lines. You can find more information like the directions on how to pay your road tax and the account numbers on the government Facebook page and website. Traditional methods such as the drop box located at the front of the building and cash payments are still available for those without online banking available to them.
And still to come, guidance counselor Sabrina Clark elucidates on choosing a study and matching. We'll have the details to that story and much more when SXM Daily News returns. Welcome back, viewers. You're watching SXM Daily News, and I'm Valerie Van Putten. As we continue now in other news, at the virtual meet and greet, which was organized by the Department of Education on Sunday last, January the 17th, for students who will be traveling to Holland for their tertiary education, guidance counselor Sabrina Clark, speaking at the virtual meet and greet, elucidated on choosing a study and matching. She said that study and building a career are not the same thing. She expounded further.
study and building a career are not the same thing. And with this, I want to give myself as an example. I studied law, but now I'm working within a bank. That is not something that you would immediately think of, but within the bank, there are many legal departments. There are departments where maybe the naming or the title has nothing to do with law, but what I'm actually doing within my function is very legal. So choosing a study does not always have to be that you're gonna build a career based on the typical careers of that specific study. So always remember that as well. And to sum up this, try to write down different pros and cons for each study. Make a list for yourself. What are good options? I wrote down a few things to look at. What do you like about a study? What compliments or qualities do you get from others in your environment that you're good at? What hobbies do you have? How do you see yourself being able to use your hobbies within a career? Is there a study that you can match within that? Which languages do you speak? Maybe there's a study where you can study mostly in English. You know, Dutch doesn't always have to be a factor to that you're limiting yourself in. Which talents do you have? Where do you see yourself? That's what I just mentioned as well. Where do you see yourself in 5 to 10 years? What do you see yourself doing? Do you see yourself going back to the Netherlands? Do you see yourself continuing a career internationally? It doesn't have to be the Netherlands. It could also be another island in the Caribbean. It could also be another country within Europe. These are all different kinds of pros and cons that cause you to weigh out different options. Could you go to the next slide, please? So also, indeed, research different schools, different cities, also different housing possibilities. A lot of times I've seen students go to the big cities, but that is also directly an area where the housing might be more difficult, that it might be more difficult to find housing. Maybe there is another city which have a good school, but maybe it's just not close to your friends. What is going to influence your decisions? Also, another tip, follow open days and walk-along days, I would just call it. And due to COVID-19, all these schools have become extremely flexible. Once you've summed up which schools you might be going to, go to their website, do research on their website, and you might actually see that most HBO, WAYO, but also MBO studies have online open days. So then you can register, and then in the form of webinars, in the form of different presentations that are already preloaded, you can easily get information from a specific study and what is also expected from you as a student in that study. And as I said in the beginning of these tips, there is no perfect study. There's no right study. It's all about what you want to accomplish. Another important tip in this situation is to also look at what the pros and cons are of a gap year. It is something that can also be done, but it has pros to it, and there are cons. For the pros in this situation is that you have time for more research. Sometimes graduating from high school it's already pretty stressful. So then there might even be more stress to really choose a study. So then with a gap year, you have time to do enough research. You also get to know yourself. What do you want to accomplish? And you also become responsible. You get more of an independence before traveling abroad. But there are also cons with this. You might lose your study rhythm. You've already been in the flow of being a student, of studying, of handing in projects, and with a gap year, you can lose that rhythm.
And Minister of Education, Dr. Rhonda Rodolph Samuel, speaking at this morning's Council of Ministers weekly press briefing regarding the financing of scholarships, he is reminding the public and students who are choosing a study to go abroad that this is a very serious step. The minister expounded further. The minister also took the time out to thank the guidance counselors and those who made the program on Sunday a success.
Remind the public, and especially those students who are choosing a study to go abroad, that this is a very serious step in your life that you are taking. So I am appealing to parents to make sure that they are involved with what their child or children is choosing to go and do. Do not choose for the child, but know what the child is doing. I would like to remind all the students to make sure and do a very good research as to what your potential choice would be before you make a final choice. Make use of the internet, make use of webinars, make use of calling the Department of the Division of Study Financing, make use of your study advisor at the school. And you can also call me if you want to have some kind of advice as to how to go about making sure you're making a good choice. I would like to take the opportunity to thank the guidance counselors and the persons who contributed in making the program on Sunday a success, especially for the students who have to make a choice. If you haven't seen the program, please make sure to go back to the Facebook of the government of St. Martin and you can re-look at the program again.
And during the answer portion of the Council of Ministers press briefing earlier this morning, Prime Minister of St. Martin elaborated on the vaccine distribution and her thoughts about Carnival 2021 and the protocols that will help create a safe environment for Carnival.
As all around the world, vaccinations are calculated how much you will need based on your residence. So that is what we are looking at. We're expected to receive at least 70% of the total residents, taking into consideration how many will want to, etc. That has been a discussion thus far with the RIVM, and our strategy is geared towards our residents, starting with our medical personnel, and then moving to our vulnerable. And after that, as we get the plan, because I must state also that the plan has been submitted to the Minister of VSA, but has not been, let's say, shared in the council as yet, as to the rest of the plan in terms of priority. So once we know that, we'll be able to move forward, and the Minister of VSA, I'm sure his staff is paying attention and will ensure that that information is divulged. However, it is for the residents of the island. I would suggest to whether you call persons who reside a long time here but are dual citizens, they live other places as well, that wherever they are registered as residents, that they should ensure that they get their vaccinations there. In terms of the discussions surrounding the Carnival 2021 and the discussions held in our Council of Ministers, I must say that the presentations, albeit concerns are still here, we allowed for the discussions to continue with stakeholders so that we could assess and continue to assess the realities of what is going on. Of course, seeing that it is a few months down the line, and if you do not give the leeway for planning to take place, then of course it cannot take place. But the permission has been granted with the understanding that we will be continuing to monitor the situation. And as this week, the stakeholder meetings are taking place, and of course also with our government organization, the police force, etc., and others that have to do inspections, we will be getting those reports in and having follow-up meetings with the Carnival Development Foundation. Of course, the biggest threat and risk lies with them and with, at this moment, in terms of planning and then being postponed or canceled at the last minute, and we would all like to avoid that. So as quickly as they can wrap up their stakeholders meetings, they will be invited back, and we will of course do our due diligence as Government of St. Martin with the other stakeholders as well in terms of feasibility, et cetera, moving forward. I do recall hearing one of the other media houses asking a question about Juve, et cetera, but I can say up front, none of the jump ups as normal would happen. None of them. That was something that we talked about at length. Juve jump up was originally still on the schedule, and in that discussion, it was completely not acceptable to have that. There were several precautions that they brought forward, but I will allow the SCDF to do their PR in terms of what precautions they feel that they can make. And as I said before, government will continue to monitor the situation. And when we have more information from our stakeholders, including the police and health sector, after seeing and hearing the plans, then we will continue to update them and the general public. Again, it is not for everybody to go out there. We do continue to still promote health first at all times, even while promoting economic development in this country. So in all things that we do, we are individually responsible for our health. We have been saying this, and people are saying, oh, you keep repeating it over and over and over again. But even if you check internationally, and we've seen mass gatherings in St. Martin, even though we have discouraged it, even though we have said to business owners, if you're not adhering, you will be shut down. But based on that, we did not see the, let's say, the high rise in cases that had been expected. That also played a role. Hospitalization remains 0 to 2 on average. That also played a role. So we will continue to monitor because, of course, if our medical services are overwhelmed, we cannot continue to do what we call the normal. We will continue to adjust, check what is possible. And I know that many have their opinions, etc. But if we honestly look at St. Martin's behavior over the last 2 to 3 months, it has been, quote unquote, more normal than not. But what we also have had is a high level of mask usage, a high level of sanitation, and therefore it has been keeping the infections pretty manageable.
Now turning to our weather forecast for January the 20th, 2021. Low moisture levels in the atmosphere will restrict precipitation across the local area. A weakened Atlantic high-pressure system will cause winds and seas to subside during this forecast period. Seas are expected to peak at 8 feet through this evening. Therefore, small craft operators and sea bathers are advised to exercise caution. State of the sea, moderate to rough. Waves swells 5 to 8 feet. Outlook through Friday midday, fair to partly cloudy with brief showers possible. Now, let's turn to your 3-day forecast. And still to come, Island Council member on St. Eustatia says the information being provided in connection with the vaccine remains vague. I'll have the details to that story when SXM Daily News returns.
The innovative Banco Matico contactless smart card. Your Banco Matico smart card is now equipped with a contactless feature for payments, so get ready to tap and go. Contactless payments are fast, easy, secure, and accepted worldwide at all Maestro-enabled contactless terminals. Tap for transactions equivalent to or less than 100 NAF, or the US dollar equivalent. You will receive notifications via email anytime you tap. Tap, tap, and pay fast. Fast with WIB. For more information, visit our website at wib-bank.net. Tap and go with your partner in progress.
Welcome back, viewers. And as we turn now to our daily COVID update, as of January the 19th, there were 8 persons who tested positive for COVID-19. However, 1 person has recovered, bringing the total active cases to 127. The total number of confirmed cases is now 1,677. The Collective Prevention Services, CPS, are monitoring 126 people in home isolation. One patient remains hospitalized at the St. Martin Medical Center. The total number of deaths due to COVID-19 remains at 27. The number of people recovered since the first case surfaced on St. Martin has increased to 1,523. 251 people are in quarantine based on contact tracing investigations carried out by CPS. The Ministry of Public Health, Social Development and Labor, VSA, the Airport Health Team, in collaboration with Healthcare Laboratory St. Martin, HCLS, have tested 2,229 travelers arriving at the Princess Juliana International Airport, while CPS has tested 13,533 people throughout the community. As the numbers continue to fluctuate, CPS will continue to actively execute its contact tracing measures. Minister of Health Richard Panafleck would like to remind everyone that if you are sick or experiencing flu-like symptoms, to stay at home and call your family doctor. To further prevent the spread of the virus and to safeguard yourself and your loved ones, you should continue to follow the mandatory guidelines implemented. And as we end this edition of SXM Daily News for this evening, in news out of the island of St. Eustatius, at the request of a member of the Island Council on Statia, Councilman of the PLP, Clyde Van Putten, the Central Committee on St. Eustatius met last Thursday. The purpose of the meeting was to get clarity from the Executive Council as well as the island's health officials regarding the COVID-19 vaccine. Speaking to the Voice of St. Martin's News Department, Councilman Van Putten stated that the information being provided in connection with the vaccine remains vague.
Well, indeed, at my request, we met in a central committee setting, even though it was of a public nature, where we asked both the Executive Council as well as officials of the Public Health Department to, bring the island up to speed and to provide the necessary information with regards to the intention in administering, the vaccines here on the island in connection with the COVID pandemic. It was a very spirited meeting, a meeting where the members of the Island Council, sought information with regards to, the pros and cons, the type of vaccines, that because there are two on the table at this point in time. And clearly, there is a lot of concern because we don't know that within 5 weeks, that the population of Statia is expected, to take this vaccine if they are interested in doing so. And there was also the discussion that it might be mandatory. What became very clear that it will not be mandatory. It is a free choice. The people will have the opportunity as to whether they would, participate in this exercise, yes or no. I must say that coming out of that meeting, there seems to be a lot of doubt. It's not very clear, to me, and I think to many of the other members who have commented, as to the lot of concern that exists, because we see in recent time there have been a lot of discussion via Facebook, as to the pros and cons. There's even in recent days, I think up to yesterday, Saturday, I saw where some 12 to 24 people died. I think it was in Switzerland, one of those countries. So there's a lot of consternation, but I must say that the information that we got from Dr. Scrubber and another official along with the Executive Council, I think in many instances it leaves a lot to be desired. A lot of it is vague. I also am learning that 95% of the officials from the Public Health Department, they themselves may not be willing, to take the vaccine. That is information I'm getting. I'm not saying it is accurate.
And with that, viewers, it brings us to the end of this edition of SXM Daily News for this evening. And just a reminder that this and other programs are available online. Simply log on to stmartinmediacenter.com for viewing. And on behalf of the SXM Daily News team, we want to congratulate the new Vice President and the first female Vice President on behalf of SXM Daily News. We want to thank you for watching and plan on meeting you right back here again tomorrow.